Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Brilliant.org. At this point, over 35 seasons in, it is weird to remember that Season 8 of The Simpsons, which aired in 1997, was already grappling with the fact that the show was getting on in age. Now in Season 8, the show is still firing on all cylinders, still firmly in the so-called golden age of the show, at least in my opinion. But Bartmania was long over, and The Simpsons was becoming a respected old TV institution, no longer perceived as the kind of edgy show that the President of the United States would be bad-mouthing in a speech. It was in this context that The Simpsons gave us Season 8, Episode 14, The Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie Show, an excellent half hour of television, and maybe the best episode of TV about TV ever made. It also gave us one of the best one-off Simpsons creations ever in Poochie. I really love this one, and I've been looking for an excuse to talk about it, so let's get into what makes it so special. I do want to say that the digital edition of my comic Binary C is available right now on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. Check it out at that link below, and if you could leave it a review on Amazon, I'd really appreciate it. So, The Simpsons. For those of you who need a quick refresher, the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie Show starts off by showing us the Simpsons kids busy doing things other than watching Itchy and Scratchy. They're not dismissive of the show, but they're engaged elsewhere. And apparently they're far from alone, as we see Krusty the Clown freaking out over the way that the cartoon is crashing his ratings mid-episode, reaming out a producer to try to fix Itchy and Scratchy and saying that he'll replace them. From there, we get a focus group scene where Lisa inadvertently gives them the idea of adding a new character. We get the highly cynical creation of the new, very 90s dog character Poochie. Homer lands the role, and things go horribly wrong from there. It's a really enjoyable and fast-paced story, but I don't think that description really gets across how packed with classic scenes this thing is. There's the obvious Poochie died on the way back to his home planet gag, comic book guy's first usage of
worst episode ever,
the fanboy in the Genius at Work t-shirt, whose critiques of Itchy and Scratchy still rightfully haunt anyone who makes videos like mine, and I'm really just scratching the surface there. Like the best of the Golden Age, it's incredible how many jokes and gags they pack into these episodes on a scene-by-scene basis. I call it a half-hour show, but obviously that's with commercials. It's really 24 minutes, but they managed to make it feel like half that just with how brutally efficient the storytelling is. The Simpsons writers were always just so good at covering so much ground with so many characters and making it look very breezy. But let's get more into the specifics. There's a reason why the writers picked this episode to reflect on the show's age, and it's a pretty good one. This is episode 167, and with it, The Simpsons became the longest running primetime cartoon in TV history, finally beating the Flintstones, which ran from 1960 to 66. Season 8 feels early on in the run now, but it sure didn't then. Itchy and Scratchy is used as the show's stand-in. Because while Season 8 would ultimately be a slight ratings uptick when all was said and done, the first 7 seasons of The Simpsons always saw a decline in Nielsen ratings from the year before. It was still very popular, but that fad quality it had early on had worn off, and I think you can see the anxiety around that in the episode itself. The focus group scene is just fantastic, with the children of Springfield happy to endorse a more grounded or more fantastical take on Itchy and Scratchy, not giving the studio a clear picture of what would help fix the show at all. Until Lisa just bluntly states that there's nothing wrong with Itchy and Scratchy. They've just been around for a while, and it'd be impossible for them to have the impact that they once did. This is the writers commenting on their own show, sure, but it also seems aimed squarely at Fox, who were rumored to be pushing for a new core character to be added to the cast. This is something that the inclusion of Roy, Poochie's Springfield counterpart, is clearly intended to mock here. The best scene in the episode, or at least the one I click on every time it's recommended to me, involves the creation of Poochie, the original dog from hell.
You mean Cerberus?
We see the producer and Lindsay Naegle. Actually, wait, is this Lindsay Naegle? She has the same voice actor and vibe, and the wiki seems to think it's the same character, but her hair color and design are kind of different. I don't know, I'll call her Lindsay to make things easier. Anyway, her and the producer cynically design a character that they assume will appeal to kids everywhere. And the writers just shrug and go along with it, not really caring or even having a choice in the matter. It's a scene that still hits hard, because though the buzzwords and jargon may have changed since the 90s, I feel like this design by committee approach to just about everything has only grown, especially in entertainment. And that kind of goes for Poochie in general. Though he's obviously commenting on characters that were added later into a show or franchise's run to give them a shot in the arm, Cousin Oliver or Scrappy Dude type, he still works today when that specific kind of character is less relevant. Because Poochie transcends one sitcom trope. In his outrageous lameness, he's emblematic of so much of the IP landscape of today, of series and franchises that just keep going on forever, throwing in new elements and characters that rarely manage to please fans of the old material. Poochie is extremely 90s, like this is not the generic character that you would design if you made this episode today. But the created by a committee thinking he represents feels more present than ever. I should also mention that, while I love this episode, and I don't really mean this as a criticism, there is a real defensiveness that runs throughout it. Whether it's the Simpsons writers seemingly trying to defend their own slightly sagging ratings from meddling Fox executives, to critiques of their own fanbase. In 1997, the internet was much smaller than it is now, but The Simpsons, along with other nerd-friendly shows like The X-Files and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, were very popular topics online. And this instant feedback was already changing TV writers' relationship with their audience. In the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie Show, we see the writers pretty directly comment on their harsher online critics. Comic Book Guy's worst episode ever catchphrase came directly from an ancient Usenet post, and Homer having to answer for minor animation errors at a panel for fans is a not exactly subtle dig at this type of online fanboy.
Let me ask you a question. Why would a man whose shirt says genius at work spend all of his time watching a children's cartoon show?
I withdraw my question.
In Bart's speech to Comic Book Guy about how Itchy and Scratchy doesn't owe him anything and has given him thousands of hours of free entertainment is even more on the nose. While the Bart line may be a bit too self-indulgent on their end, on the whole, these are really funny scenes, and they also turn the episode into an interesting time capsule, capturing a specific moment in time when TV writers were first becoming aware of how hostile the new online world could be to the shows that they ostensibly loved. Now, this is a phenomenon that's only morphed and grown teeth since, but it's funny and interesting to see some of the first signs of it here. Just a few years later, Television Without Pity, an early-ish TV blog, would drive the West Wing creator Aaron Sorkin so crazy that he wrote an entire subplot just to get back at them. This was a interesting time period for TV adjusting to the internet. Now, I think those scenes hold up pretty well for The Simpsons, but they give the episode a distinctly late 90s feel that contrasts a lot with the earlier seasons. Now, I know I'm talking about some bigger ideas here, but what I risk is missing the fun specifics. Carl trying to think of anything nice to say about Poochie to Homer and settling on just complimenting his house. Ned saying it's the best episode of Impy and Chimpy he's ever seen. Homer's heartfelt in-character speech as Poochie. It's all great stuff. Poochie is the lasting legacy of this episode, and for good reason. He's a dead-on approximation of a certain kind of corporate thinking. But the episode is also so much more than him. It's a funny and bitter screed from the Simpsons writers' room, both well executed and a little petty. With a downbeat ending too, when Bart and Lisa finally get the version of the show they want back without Poochie, they're still kind of over it. I don't know, there's a cynicism to this episode that I'll kind of always love about it. It's really easy for me to watch an episode of a sitcom I love for like the 10th time. And even though I'll always enjoy that, sometimes it's better to fill that time with something a little more productive and fresh. That is one thing Brilliant.org is amazing at. That's because for a long time now, they've been making the process of learning way more fun and accessible than ever before. One of the best things about it is that Brilliant.org is super interactive. It's not about going through a rote textbook. It's getting feedback as you work to tackle math, science, and computer science concepts, is that it allows you to do it entirely on your schedule. Spending those 30 minutes a day or so on them is both fun and builds our skills, without any of the stress that you might associate with some of these topics. So why not try out a class like How LLMs Work and really get up to date with the latest interesting tech? And that's just one of so many classes that they have to offer. So to try it all for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/midnight or click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because...
Hey, kids, always recycle. To the extreme! Busted!